Hello, welcome to Nature Time. My name is Nicole Wooten. I am the Natural Resources Manager at the Hudson Highlands Land Trust, and I am joined today by Ricky Cruz, Director of the Fresh Air Fund's Camp Junior.
How you doing?
Thanks, Ricky. And Kayla Polino, who is Co-Director at Camp Junior.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Kayla. So Fresh Air Fund is a partner organization of Hudson Highlands Land Trust. Since its founding in 1877, Fresh Air Fund has provided life-changing summer experiences for children from New York City's underserved communities. Ricky and Kayla are here today to share their experiences of nature in the Highlands region and beyond. Ricky and Kayla, thank you both so much for taking the time to chat.
So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, so we will go ahead and dive in. So Kayla, what was your first experience of nature?
I can say that going to state parks with my family in the summertime, definitely my first experience of nature. Remember running through woods with my aunts and of course tripping over all the branches and not figuring out, okay, maybe this might hurt. But yeah, I loved it, being around the trees and all the grass, and just the special memory of being combined in nature plus food.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Kayla. Ricky, what was your first experience of nature?
I've been thinking a lot about this, of which one, because where I was raised right across the street is the Bronx River, as well as there's a park that goes from Woodlawn to all the way to Bronx Park East, all the botanical gardens and kind of that. So that space was kind of there, and it was like a gateway of the Bronx and urban versus you have this little land of a river and the trees. But then I also think about when I went up to Fresh Air and being up in the kind of the suburbs and having more and trails and all that. So it's I had my little experience where I can walk 2 feet and go back home versus or moving away from that. So it kind of where it was with nature, but both kind of fit of my first experience.
That sounds wonderful. It sounds like you've had quite a spread. So I'd like to ask you both, how has your relationship with nature changed since your first experience? Kayla, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think that for me, I would always associate being in nature with going to state parks or going to sleepaway camp, which has been my pastime for all of my childhood, right? But I think now as an adult, it's associating it more with what's around my neighborhood. And, it may be between slabs of concrete, but there are small areas that are, parks that should be taken advantage of, and the opportunities are there. And it's really highlighting for myself and the kids that we serve that they do have nature present in their very backyards as well.
That's wonderful and resonates so much. Nature is all around us no matter where we are. Ricky, how about you? How's your relationship with nature changed since your first experience?
I think at first it was when I was younger was kind of a love-hate, where it was I like to be outside, but the bugs was just not my friend, and just trying to the screen, if you didn't open the window, I had a screen in, you were asking for trouble in your house. So, but I've definitely have changed where my friendly town family have kind of told me, they was who would have thought that you would have been the director of a sleepaway camp, or you would have hiked with our CITs on 4 days on the Appalachian Trail, when I used to go up there and we would try to put up a tent just in the backyard. I wouldn't do it. I was just so a homebody, very amenities focused, air and all that. But I think working at camp every summer and being put to those elements became home to me. And I just always just think about that first night when I had to go when I was 18 and figuring out the drain doesn't work as well, and then the bugs are in there. So it's just I think it was a very humbling, kind of forceful way of this is what it's going to be like, and you either accept it and try to see the best of it, or you just can't.
I hear you, and yeah, I love that finding those good spaces and having that change over life from first experience to now. Um, that's wonderful. So, uh, I'd like to ask you both too. What are your thoughts around access to nature, both for yourself and can you speak for your community?
Yeah, I think that the access to nature is there. I just think that it needs to be highlighted more in my community. So I live in the Bronx, New York, and yes, there are many parks in the Bronx, but I think that they need to be highlighted better and better taken care of so that people can go to them more and feel that they have access to the nature in their backyard. But I also do enjoy the fact that since while growing up, the Metro North has brought more access to state parks or larger parks so that public transportation is a possibility for people if they don't have cars. Because for me, growing up and going to those state parks, it was very heavy on the fact that we had a car, which is a great luxury to have, but that's not everyone's reality. And so for me, the importance of having both public transportation and access to something in your own neighborhood is extremely important.
Makes so much sense. Thank you, Kayla. Ricky, what are your thoughts around access to to nature for yourself, and can you speak for your community?
I think what Kayla touched on was very important about the access is there. So I don't feel like there's no saying of like our community can't go in or do that, but I feel like exposure of knowing that these exist or you can do this and stuff and it is also with the car because I think for me when I was younger if we wanted to be quote unquote a more nicer kind of state park or a pool we used to drive to FDR, but if I didn't have a car and my grandma didn't have one it was like those special moments or when they came down to, but I think exposing of like Bear Mountain and how do that. So maybe more available access than the times that are there because I think maybe it's limited on what it is because I know you would have to take a bus up to the Bear Mountain Inn, but it's only amount of times that you can go up there or certain time. So, but I feel like within the community, people know about the different areas of what nature is, but I think I know we're going to get to this more, but what does the nature mean for the community itself and how they correlate and have that relationship? But I just feel very strong on the exposure of different opportunities of what it is, and even means like tubing in the winter or different cabins that they can be access to, rather than I know it's in their backyard, but something greater to just have these moments with.
Thank you, Ricky. And that does dovetail really well into um, the last question I want to bring to you all, which is what are your thoughts about your community coming into green spaces? And could you provide any tips on how they could be made more accessible?
So for me, when it comes down to what the spaces will need to coming into the spaces, when I think about when I grown up about coming into a lot of spaces, it's a celebration. It's more bringing people together. So if it's places for barbecue, is it places for picnic, and I think that part of just more of because I feel like my community or a sense of where I was raised, my lived experiences, when we go out into green spaces, it's coming together, it's bringing people in, and usually coming together over a meal or over like volleyball games or just something like that. And when I think of like how to make them more accessible is understanding what can be done there, because I feel like when in my park across the street it's like the only park that I know of in the Bronx that you can barbecue in or that is close is Pelham Bay Park. But if you're on the opposite side of the Bronx, it's like, how do I transport all my stuff to there when I have a perfectly good park across the street that fits this community? But these are the amenities that we need. So like setting it up so it's like, you know, there are designated grilling areas or that where instead of having to go there, but you know, I think the comfortability of the access to it, because I doubt anybody wants to go on a bus that maybe take 3 or 4 buses to get to the other side of the Bronx to bring the items you need if you don't have a car. So that's when it comes down to me. It's like, while there are places in the community that have all these amenities, but they're not all the same. So like some may have this and some may have that, but it's not. And you're affecting different area codes or zip codes.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Ricky. Kayla, what are your thoughts?
I think a big part of it is doing your research. You know, we have so many programs out there and nonprofits out there that are willing to bring nature to our kids. And so, for example, the Fresh Air Fund does a really good job of, you know, going into the community and making sure that we, you know, that our families know what we are able to provide for them. But it's really up to the families if they want to take that chance, right? And to send their child to have that first experience in nature where they're kind of afraid of bugs and, you know, they're not necessarily willing to sleep outdoors or make a tent. But, you know, even having organizations that teach kids how to row in the city, you know, or have foundations who can take kids on hikes. So those opportunities exist, and the nature is there. So I think doing research is a huge part of that, because yeah, it's really like the opportunities are endless, you know. And I guess just wanting that push for people so that they know that they have opportunities out there for them.
That's wonderful and really well said. Thank you, Kayla. Yeah, it sounds like with more amenities, better transportation, and making those connections among the nature opportunities and the organizations who can make those first connections and continuing ones. Those are really important to accessibility. So yeah, thank you both so much. I really appreciate also how Fresh Air Fund makes a lot of these accessibility points happen. And I look forward to exploring how maybe Hudson Highlands Land Trust can continue to work in partnership with Fresh Air Fund and further make nature spaces more accessible. Great. Thank you both.
I love that. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your time.
Thank you, Nicole, for providing the space for us to talk about it. Thank you.